it doesn't matter who you are or what you struggle with. We all deserve the freedom to breathe. We all deserve the freedom to be able to say, I missed it all. I know that I am seen and I'm heard right here in this moment as I am.
Hey everyone, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Trevor Talks, where we talk to real people about real topics and real stories. And here I am. It's the first episode of the new year that I've actually recorded, and I'm so pumped. Here we are almost 2 years later, and we're still kicking, 2021, 2020, very interesting years, but here we are, 2022, with some amazing new content. So thank you guys for sticking around with us. And I am super thrilled and pumped about today's episode because we get to speak with a world changer. She's a poet, a singer, songwriter, artist, activist, and simply an amazing all-around individual. And I believe this conversation is going to be one of those that we all walk away from with a sense of a refreshed perspective and hopefully a sense of peace. Without further ado, here is Morgan Harper Nichols. Morgan, we made it. It's happening. This is happening.
It's happening. It's happening. I'm so grateful to be here. I mean, it never ceases to amaze me just how through space and time we all get connected, and I'm just so blessed to just even be able to connect with someone who I met a long time ago, like way before I was doing any of the stuff I'm doing today.
It's insane because when we first met, it was before Storyteller, the record, came out.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, we're going to touch on that so much in this episode just because it's such a good record.
Oh, thank you.
If you're listening to this, we're going to talk about her new book, but I'm just going to tell you, the Storyteller record is phenomenal. I'd punch the table right now, but it's loud and does stupid things with a microphone. But we met in 2014, 2015, and obviously I had no beard. And one of the first words that we had together was you telling me that Jamie Grace, your sister, didn't finish high school, and I'm sitting there admiring her. And so you got me yelled at the first time I met you guys, and that's just how we set it off. So I'm excited to finally be here.
Yeah, it's so funny because I was like, yeah, that sounds like something I would have said, because Jamie is always the one who makes up these kind of jokes and pranks way faster than me. So that sounds like one of the rare moments I beat her to it. So she'll say that all the time, like just make up random stuff. So yeah, you just happen to be that our interaction just happened to be one of those few moments I was able to kind of like beat her to making a funny joke, even though it was completely made up. And she did graduate from high school, but yeah.
She did. And you probably don't know this, but I've wanted to do this interview for so long.
Oh, wow.
Prior to all this, you had your art, before it became this globally known thing, you were selling it in Coffee Camper in Monroe, Georgia at Crystal Padilla's coffee shop. Shout out to her. I love her so much. I still go to Coffee Camper every time I'm in town.
Yes.
And I remember you had your booth set up and the revolutionary side, and it was always so refreshing to go in there and just be able to see your art. And then the one day I was like, because when you had it, I was still broke, high schooler and such, right? So when I finally started making some money, I was like, ooh, I'm gonna go in there and get me something, and it was gone. And then next thing I know, I'm working at AT&T, and every single green straw girl that comes in has your artwork as their background.
Oh my!
And I'm like,
goodness.
What the heck happened?
What did I miss? The fact that you brought that up, that just means so much. That was such a huge moment when I was asked to have my art there. And yeah, that was my very first time doing anything like that. And I wasn't able to keep it up because I barely said yes to that opportunity. And because I didn't think that anybody would buy what I was creating. And it was just such I think some people get surprised when they find out, I've had some real insecurities around putting my artwork out there, and it's one thing to put your artwork out there and someone likes it on social media or your friend says, "Oh, I like that." But it's another whole thing to have to worry about "Oh, someone wants to buy this? Are you sure?" Like, they wanna own this, like, and put it in their house, like, their hard-earned money, like, they wanna invest it in what I make, and that's been a huge till this day, it has never become just super easy. So that just means a lot that, like, you got to experience that because I ended up being so surprised because I ended up having my booth there, and I remember getting the call that, like, my artwork was really selling and they needed more inventory, and I didn't have more. So that was actually why I ended up not being able to do it as long as I even wanted to, because I was not prepared for people to actually buy what I was making. So it just means so much that you got to see that.
It's it's almost a perfect segue into talking about the piece that you're bringing with your new book, which let's take it back a few steps here. We just talked about you being so insecure about your artwork being at a local store.
Mhm.
Now it's global and you're working with like the major publishing houses and have your art showcasing all over the globe, everywhere from the Kelly Clarkson show to daggum Social Circle Georgia. Like, let's go. That was obviously not like an overnight thing. And from the moment I heard your voice, and even though like you got well known from poetry and creating your art, like your voice overall, like, and you as a person, as an activist, is just so refreshing to me.
Mm,
Like, on a serious note, like every single time I see your social media posts or see a video that you post, and even you and Patrick doing your business, like God's carrying that peace through you and
mm,
showing it and replicating it. And it's phenomenal. And all of that to say, peace is a practice, an invitation to breathe deep and find a new rhythm for life is going to
mhm.
be out when this record like comes out. That's
Yeah.
wild.
Mhm. Well, thank you for even just, kind of reflecting my own story back to me and some of the things that I feel like God has just been doing in my life, even just in ways that I couldn't see in real time. And I think that that's why, honestly, like, the theme of peace has become such a big theme in what I create and what I share, because it's so interesting to me. It's like so much of my life has when I look back on it, I'm like, this was beyond my understanding. I'm like, I didn't understand why I even sometimes I would think I would know. I would think I know why I was living in a certain city or why I was going through a particular thing. But when I look back, I was like, I had no idea what was going on in real time. But I was like, even though in the moment what was happening was beyond my understanding, at the same time, there was peace beyond my understanding there as well. I was learning how to breathe through every moment. I was learning how to be present to the hard stuff, the awkward stuff, the stuff that I'm like, why do I have to do this? Why is this not coming together faster? So yeah, I enjoy writing about it because I just feel like even just everything that everyone's been going through over the past few years, it's like I hope that we all can sense this invitation to be in the present moment and find ways to make this moment meaningful. And yeah, yeah.
That's so good. And can we kind of go over like what was the beginning stages for getting this book together? Like, a lot of people are like, ding, light bulb. But for every author,
Mhm.
every speaker, every artist, like it all, your art incorporates in different ways. So, how were you able to translate these words into art and then piece it into a book like this?
Mhm. Honestly, it came from a place of feeling like, and it's something I know I'm not alone in feeling, but feeling a little burnt out, feeling a little bit like, "Do I have to keep doing this again?" It's kinda like those first few months of the lockdown a few years ago. I felt like there were a lot of people, myself included, like, "Okay, let's frame this positively. Let's figure out, how we're gonna get through this." And then, once you get to month 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, it's like, "Okay, I'm a little burnt out on on trying to find positive ways to think about this." And as somebody who is an artist and a creative, it's like you're kind of expected to to show up and a lot of times say something inspiring and say something encouraging. But it's like, what do you do when you feel like your cup is getting empty and you're not
Mm.
full in the way that you want to be? Even for me, somebody who is and who considers myself to be an introvert, like there got to a certain point where not being around people the way that I used to, or having all of my events canceled, like that still gets to me too. And it was just like even further getting into like even the summer of 2020, everything that started happening just around the racial unrest that was taking place. Like that's exhausting. Like even as somebody who felt like I maybe had something to say, it's a lot. It's a lot to just have to keep taking all this in every day. So a lot of it came from me just asking questions in my own life of like, what does it look like to get through this? What does it look like to keep pacing myself through every day? And that's where I feel like it's no coincidence that I've been given. I consider it a gift as memory, the ability to look back through my own life and all these other moments where I've struggled to make it through, or I've been getting overwhelmed by the future. How did I make it through? What were the themes that kept showing up? And one of the biggest themes was breathing. I've been learning how to breathe through every moment. So that gave me a lot of courage and permission and motivation to write the book because it was like, look, I can't tell you what tomorrow looks like. I don't know what's coming, but I do know that in a million different little ways, we have been equipped for this journey. And I want to look back in my own life and help others do the same and see all those moments that have been leading us to be able to make it through these new unknowns and what we can do in the present moment to stay on that path. So yeah, that's kind of how it came to life.
Yeah, and when I started reading about the book and even diving into some of the bits and pieces of the book, I was like, what better time to put this out? Like, as someone who struggles with panic attacks, someone who has had like the anxious moments like repetitively, this is the kind of content that people can really dive into and actually see like things that they
Mhm.
can apply to their own lives. So, when it comes for me, like diving into peace, a lot of times it's reading something calming or using
Mhm.
the Calm app or scrolling through your Instagram feed. Like there's a bunch of different resources out there to really help people in these struggling times. But what makes yours so unique? Like, obviously, you have a unique perspective on anxiousness and pursuing peace through hard times. But even going through your own diagnosis recently, like,
Mhm.
how has art and poetry and peace, how has God used it to help you personally, and how can other people apply that to their life?
Yeah, yeah. So I feel like my answer to this will probably kind of split a group of
Mhm.
people into half. Like I feel like half of the people are going to be like, "Yeah, absolutely, I get it," but the other half are going to be like, "Oh, here we go, not interested." And that is honestly, I truly believe that creativity has been a huge way that I've been able to make it through, and how God has used art to speak to me and help me make it through the moments, each moment, the complicated moments, the ordinary moments, the boring moments, all of those
Mhm.
moments. Because what making art teaches you to do, and I'm not just talking about painting, I'm talking about writing songs,
Yeah.
I'm talking about writing books, it forces you to slow down. It's like if you have to paint a picture for someone, a moment that's happening and tell a story. You got to pay attention to the details. What was the weather like that day? How were you feeling? What were you wearing? Does that impact how you were feeling because you felt like you were in these restraining tight clothes? Is the fact that you were wearing a face mask, were you just like, "Ah, I need to take a deep breath," or were you happy about it that day because you didn't want people to see that you were upset beneath the mask? There are all these little details that happen within our daily lives that are not coincidence. And it's so easy to get in the bigger picture of like, okay, what are we doing? What's the big takeaway step by step? How are we going to make it through this present moment? And really, every day, I believe that God is inviting us to slow down and to pay attention to all those little things. So, making art, writing poetry, or even writing in your journal, anything that that causes you to kind of like exhale all that you've been taking in, it's a way into being present to that moment, and it's a way into being more grateful for ordinary life. And I truly believe that that has been a huge area in my life that I can see very clearly how God has used to sustain me. I was diagnosed with autism last year, and in many ways it was not a surprise at all. I have been struggling with a lot of various things in my life in terms of communication and socializing and all these different things. And it was through my diagnosis that I was able to see that I had been struggling, but at the same time, the other side of my struggle, I was able to find strength. And I'll give you an example. So, within my autism diagnosis, I have also a sensory processing disorder. And that means loud sounds, bright lights, they wear me out and they wear me out fast. Um, and at one point in my life, I was a touring musician. And if you know anything about a show, there's a lot of loud sounds and bright lights. And I would feel so exhausted after a show and I wouldn't know why. I was like, "Oh, it's because I didn't get enough sleep or it's because of something I ate." Who knows? I had all these reasons or because of the time zones. Like I was just disproportionately exhausted all the time. Like no one would have known it by seeing me, but I was. And while that was a struggle, at the same time, that sensitivity that I have to sound, it's what helps me be able to sing the way that I do. It's what helps me be able to record inspirational videos the way that I do because I'm so sensitive to how even my own voice leaves my body and how it sounds and how it reverberates in my own body and in the room I'm in. I'm so sensitive to it. And the same with light. My sensitivity to light is what helps me see colors within colors and it helps me paint different hues that I might not even be able to see have had I not been so sensitive to color. So it's just been really fascinating just to see how this one area of my life, creativity, has ended up teaching me so much about the wholeness of my own experiences and not just framing everything as, oh well, here's this thing that I'm ashamed of or it's hard about my life. It's like, well, there's also this other aspect of it. And I want to continue to welcome the grace that allows me to hold room for all of it. So yeah, those are just some of the things that I've been learning and in that way I've just been really encouraging people to kind of find ways to be more creative in their daily life, like even if it's just being more observant because I really do think that there's a lot there to uncover and learn from.
Do you think when, or if you'll get vulnerable with me, you don't have to, but
Yeah.
I'll open it up for you if you want. When you got this diagnosis at like it's a little bit different obviously when you get it as a
Mhm.
child. You get
Yeah.
a diagnosis like this as an adult. Did you take it in a positive like, "Oh, this makes a lot of sense. It gives me a lot of clarity," or was it like, "God, why is it always me?" You know?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that's such a good question. Yeah, I feel like for me, I was diagnosed at 31, and for me, it actually was a very positive, empowering moment. It felt like all these years where I was asking those questions of why me? Why do I struggle so much making friends? Why am I always so exhausted when I'm at events? Why do I struggle with just simple tasks that other people seem to be able to do, like just answer 30 emails back to back and just go on throughout their day. It takes me 3 times the time it takes someone else to do it just because I have to really mindfully listen and read through everything. So I had all these little moments in my life where I had been asking, why me? Why this? Why is this so difficult? Why is this simple thing so hard for me? And honestly, I mean, just to get really vulnerable, I would say that a lot of my kind of like those breakdown moments in my life where I'm just like, I felt like a total failure. A lot of it came from like not feeling like I couldn't do the things that seem simple for other people. That to me, honestly, is that some of my lowest lows have been from that place. Like I remember being in high school, and I mean the lowest low I ever felt as a teenager was when I was taking a tap dancing class, and I was just terrible at it. And that was the low, like, because it was just like it was so simple. Like this routine was so simple for everyone else in the room. And I felt so alone in not being able to do it, that it just like it was just like the last straw. It was just like, wow, I really am no one if I can't learn a freaking 3-step tap dance routine for beginners. Not to mention also, I was like 14 and everyone else in the class was like in their 30s or 40s. So that didn't help either because
Well, I
it
mean,
was like the beginner class for adults. It was just
if it
like,
makes you feel any better at all, I cannot picture you tap dancing at all. I just can't see it.
yeah,
I
it's not
can't.
a thing. Yeah, it's I retired the tap shoes long ago, and I never looked back. But yeah,
Like
it's
hearing the taps and seeing you, then I just
yeah.
can't see it.
Well,
It's like
thank
that's
you.
not
I
me.
appreciate that. But yeah, back then it was just like I
It's a
was
big
just
deal.
trying so hard because I mean, you know how it is especially the younger you are, it's like you want to have like your thing, especially if you have peers who are like good at sports or good at
Oh, that
music.
was not
And
me. I
yeah,
totally I relate with that. My dad will be outside throwing the football with all my brothers, and they'd be
yeah,
running at it. I'd be running away from it. Like, don't be throwing stuff at me. Like this,
yeah.
it wasn't me. I was never the sports guy, so I relate.
Yeah, and then I feel like kids today have it even harder, and I mean, you're a little
Mhm.
bit younger than me, so you probably can relate to
Yeah.
this too with social media. I mean, now kids have to deal with like their classmates like going viral, and it's like, well, what's my thing, or just seeing your classmates get into prestigious universities, and then maybe you didn't, and it's just that stuff wears down on you. So it's like
Mhm.
you recognize, okay, I can't do all the stuff that everyone else does, and then you go off and try to do some simple thing and you can't do that either. Yeah, a lot of my moments have been that. So, when I consider all those moments like that in my life, and then I consider that when I got to my diagnosis, it felt like, wow, finally, all of those moments where I felt like I could not keep up. Now I know that there was a reason. There was a huge part of that was a reason, that yeah, I was trying to do a whole bunch of stuff that just wasn't for me. I was created one particular way as an autistic person, and I, for one, am proud of it. I'm happy about it. I can celebrate who I am even amidst the struggles, and that's not at all me being like toxic positivity, like, oh my gosh, my life is just so great now that I know I'm autistic. It's like, no, there's some real issues. I mean, even for autistic adults, a lot of autistic adults like struggle with finding jobs or struggle with getting in relationships. And those things are real. And at the same time, I'm like, it doesn't matter who you are or what you struggle with. We all deserve the freedom to breathe. We all deserve the freedom to be able to say, I missed it all. I know that I am seen and I'm heard right here in this moment as I am. So I'm grateful that that's how I felt in that moment. I felt seen, I felt heard, I felt supported. And I think that those are just like I'm like, I want everyone in the world to have that moment, whether they're autistic or whatever it is that they're going through. I'm like, everybody deserves to have that moment where they're like, yeah, through it all, everything I went through, I feel seen, I feel heard, I feel supported, I feel loved, I feel understood. Those are huge. So
Yeah.
that's how I felt in that moment.
You've said grateful so many times, and it puts a song in my mind. It's like, I want to be grateful,
Yes.
grateful. Like, girl, I wish I had it like on this board here, like your whole album, just like, heck, like all this vulnerability and all this talk about peace. It's like One of the things that really hit home for me with reading through the book was when you explain peace as a cycle.
Mhm,
Like, you could break the cycle, but if you get your rhythm down, you can
mhm,
try to find that peace. So for like me, struggling with panic attacks, panic disorder, I have to have those like steps like, okay, you're not dying,
mhm,
breathe. And people are like, they're looking for a one-stop shop. Like they'll Google
mhm,
how to cure a panic attack or whatever. There's there's not a blueprint for that.
mhm.
But there are things that you could try to implement. So, in your perspective and what you write about in the book, how can we turn like peace into a cycle?
Yes, yes. So, one of the key components to practicing breathes and looking for that freedom to breathe in the present moment is just something we have to practice. Like it's not something that we just figure out one day or will we read a book. So what I hope to do is to give people a practice. Like not so much like here's your 3 steps that will apply to every single scenario in your life. No, I wanted to give people something that they can practice. And what I found to be so fascinating is that when it comes to our breathing, even though we breathe every day, all day, when it comes to breathing appropriately or taking deep breaths, that's something we have to practice. So I started to do some research on respiratory cycles. And as I was looking up different images and things, I'm no doctor, but as I was just looking at different images, the artist in me couldn't resist that sometimes, like, when people were making, making these graphs of, like, how the respiratory cycle works, they would use this image of a circle, this inhale and an exhale, and I'm like, "Oh, it's kinda like it makes sense. It's something we move in and out of over and over again. It's kind of like we have to practice breathing. We have to practice a lot of things in life. Oh, you know what? We also have to practice peace. And I saw it as like this cycle. And I'm like, yeah, practice is kind of like a cycle. It's something that we have to go through and try over and over again. And the same is true with peace. Peace is something that we have to practice. So I just saw this theme here. And at first it was a kind of like an artistic theme that I was noting, just like a visual theme, but I noticed it was a layer deeper than that as well. I was like, even if you just look at your own life, anything that you eventually figured out how to do, you had to practice it first. You had to keep going back to it over and over and over again. So I just feel like in these times of uncertainty that we're all in, it matters that we practice good things. We practice things that will apply no matter what scenario we're in. And peace is one of those things that I think we can practice not only for our own individual lives, but also for our communities and those that are around us.
That's so good. And before we wrap this up, I just want to acknowledge like I feel like I just got out of therapy, by the way. So we will have the link in the description for the book and everything, but we've talked about your record so many times because I'm just a mega fan. I can literally quote them all. But
Oh,
there's
that
one
means so much.
song on it that I want to talk about, and it's I Can't Save Myself, what you did with
Yeah.
Mac Powell, my bad. I can't save myself. I can't save myself. Coming to my rescue is what you do so well. And when my strength is failed, the story I'll tell is something that you can't leave me on my own all
Yeah.
alone. I can't save myself. Like I butchered it a little bit, okay,
Hey, you yeah.
but
You were
overall,
good.
it's good.
Mhm.
Where, if you could remember, where did this song come from? What's the testimony? What's the story behind it? And is it still on like DSPs for people to listen to?
Mm. Yes, yes. So that song, "I Can't Save Myself," it came from a place of thinking about people in my own life who I know are who are needing help. I think it's very sometimes it could be a little easy in our modern times because we do have so many tools. When you think about even something as simple as like being able to call 911, like that didn't even exist 100 years ago. It's like we have a lot of tools in our society that we're just like, oh yeah, if I need help, if I need this, da 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 da, I got it myself. Like I don't need anybody else. I can just go and do this and do that. But if you talk to someone who has been battling years of chronic illness, or you talk to someone who has sought out help and hasn't been able to get it, a lot of times there's a lot of shame that those people end up being put on them. Like, oh, can't you just, try X, Y, and Z and feel better? Or can't you just do this? And I really wanted to write something specifically for those people, and also anyone who has ever felt like, you know what? I don't know how I'm gonna get out of this. And to know that there is, and that the line of the song, it says, "How your love refused to leave me on my own." And that there is a love that refuses to leave you in that place. And God's love is there to help let you know that you're not alone. And that's an eternal love, a divine love that doesn't fade, a love that doesn't go away. So even when you're feeling like, yeah, I'm at the bottom, and you're feeling shame for being in that place, and you're feeling like, oh, I should be able to get myself out of the situation, but I can't. And I need some help. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I just really, truly just wanted that to be known, because we're not islands unto ourselves. And I think also too, another group of people that I was just really thinking about when that song was written, I was thinking about a lot of different people in my life. It's people who are maybe in a mental health crisis. I think that's another huge one where, someone might literally say to people like, oh, it's all in your head. It's all in your mind. Like, you should be able to just do this and do that and be fine. It's like, no, we should have absolutely no shame for needing help through that, even if it is something going on in your mind. Like, it's so funny how that gets thrown around like it's just in your mind.
Yep.
It's like, you do know the mind's like really complex, and like
It's a
we
big
have
thing
and and we still have
just in your
barely
mind.
barely figured out what's going on up there.
And your
So
car motor is just on fire.
yeah, exactly.
No big
Exactly.
deal.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, these aren't small things, and I just wanted to write something to let people know that they're not alone, and it is absolutely okay to cry out and seek for help when you need it.
I can't save myself. I'm just kidding. I'm not getting into it.
Yes, the
And now
reprise.
you look, now all y'all know why I don't have a music career and why Morgan does. And Morgan, this has been great. Just thank you for being here. Thank you for being so vulnerable and
Mm,
sharing about just everything you're doing. You're doing so much. It's not just a book coming out. It's not just art and poetry being released. It's
mm,
not just music. Like, you're being very vulnerable and transparent with people, and it's encouraging millions all over the world. So
mm.
thank you for taking time to speak with us and pour into the audience here. And I'm just excited to see what else God's going to do through you. And you better reprise this record, or
Yes, yes, we
I
got
need
some
it. I
things.
need it.
We got some things in the works. Yeah, I'm still so proud of that project. Like,
Me too.
it's a world to hear you talk about it. I really am proud of it. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you are watching this right now, all Morgan's socials are going to be in the description below. Be sure to go check out Peace is a Practice, which is in stores everywhere. And the link is, of course, below. Thank you to New Release Today and the Whosoevers for powering this episode. And again, Morgan, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, and thank you. Thank you.
Goodbye now.